I want to tell you a little bit of a story about a 17-year-old young man. He was in a really dark place. He had gone through some traumatic things. He's working on graduating from high school at this point in time. His grandfather, he was very close, had a stroke and spent quite a while in the hospital recovering. His other grandfather, shortly after that, ended up in the hospital with heart problems. And then, shortly after that happened, one of his friends in the neighborhood was murdered. And here he is, trying to process all this while still trying to graduate high school. And he fell into this darkness. And one day he was out on his own, out in nature, and he went to the edge of a cliff. And he yelled out, "God, I know you exist, but you must not love me, otherwise you take this pain away." And he just yelled and screamed at God for a while. And he said, "If you truly do love me, do something about it." Then he stepped off the edge of that cliff. If you want to hear the rest of the story, pay attention. So I told the story at the beginning of the message about the 17-year-old man, a young man who was really struggling. And he was on the edge of a cliff, and he yelled at God, and he challenged God, and when he was done yelling at God, he took a step off the cliff. I left him hanging there in the midair. So here's the rest of the story. What happened to this young man? What happened to this 17-year-old? He stepped off that cliff. About 40 feet down, and a bunch of large boulders at the bottom of the cliff. Well, just before you get to the boulders at the bottom of the cliff, there's a slight decline, I guess you'd call it, where it goes out a little bit before you reach the boulders. And as he's falling, it's like something pushed him back against the edge of the cliff, and he just kind of slid all the way down to where his feet hit the boulders instead of him landing on the boulders. A week later, he's at church. He's still feeling miserable, but he's hiding the darkness from everybody, acting like there's really nothing wrong. But one of the girls from the youth group at the end of church walks up to him and offers him a cassette. Anybody know what a cassette is? It's a magnetic tape that's in a plastic casing. And back in the day, we used to use it to record music on or record our voices on. Used to record sermons on them at churches. Anyway, she handed him a cassette, and this particular cassette was 90 minutes long. And along with the cassette was a letter. And she said, "No, I'm not going to give it to you unless you promise me you're going to read the letter and listen to the entire cassette." And so he made that promise. And that night, as he was getting ready for bed, he stuck the cassette into the cassette player, and he read the letter. And the letter said, "You're different. You used to have a sparkle in your eye, but now when we stare into your eyes, all we see is darkness. We miss you." And so he started to tear up. But he's listening to what's recorded on this cassette. And it's the same song recorded over and over and over again. Both sides of that cassette, 90 minutes of the same song. It's a song by Michael W. Smith titled, "I Miss the Way." And it goes something like this. once a true believer, once there was a fire in your soul, you were the epitome of blessed faith astir, with thirst for holiness and hunger for the word. But now you move in other circles to the beat of different drums. And I see only glimpses of the one you used to be, the inspiration that you were to me. I miss the way his love would dance within your eyes. I miss the way his heart was the soul of your life. And somewhere in the farthest part of heaven's room, our Father sheds a tear for you. He misses you too. And so, the 17-year-old, he prays again. And this time he pours his heart out to God. He tells God, this is what I'm going through. This is something I don't want in my life. Please help me. And he falls asleep while he's praying to God. For the first time in months, he got more than 2 hours of sleep that night. The next morning, he's feeling a little bit better, but he decides, well, he's going to head up out of town, and just go sit on a hillside and just think and do some more praying. And so he hops on his bicycle and he goes up the street. He gets to the end of the block, and it's a T in the road. You could either turn left or right. His destination is off to the right. But as he's getting ready to turn right and continue up to the hill that he wants to go sit on, he hears a voice off to his right. And he says, and this voice says, in a very loving, gentle voice, it says, turn left. Well, you can imagine what the 17-year-old is thinking. Where did that voice come from? There's nobody around me. Where did that voice come from? He kind of shrugged it off. And he starts to turn right, and he hears it again. Turn left. And he looks around again. Like, I don't know what's going on. So he turns right, and then he says, here's the voice again. You need to go left. He says, well, okay. So he turns left. And every turn he needed to make, that loving voice told him which way to turn, where to turn. And it took him to an apartment that he had never been to before, in an apartment complex he had never been to before. And the voice told him, knock on the door. So he knocks on the door, and he hears some laughing inside. And the door is opened. And it was a young girl from the youth group that handed him the cassette the day before. She was at the youth leader's apartment. And the youth leader was in the army, and she was packing to move to another location. And so this young man, he was invited inside. And so he goes inside, and he's like, well, I might as well help him since I'm here. I'd rather be up on the hillside, but okay, I'm here. And then about 10 minutes later, he is laughing so hard his gut hurt. Everybody's just having a good time. It was the best time he had in 7 months. He just was having a blast. And the girl from the youth group, she looks at him and says, the darkness is going away. The darkness is going away. The sparkle is coming back. That was back in 1992. What happened to that young man? Well, I'm happy to say I'm standing before you today. It was a very pivotal point in my life. It took me from doubting God loved me to knowing God is truly there for me. And He's really, truly there for you. Just plead with Him to help you, to send you the help you need. May God bless you. May He be with you always.